got a marketing question that's keeping you stuck? Or maybe you just want straight answers without all the jargon? Join us every Tuesday at 11:30am for the Marketing Drop-In with Gareth and Kirsty. It's free, it's live, and you can bring any challenge, big or small. The Marketing Drop-In, clarity without the fluff. See you Tuesday.
You've heard 100 so-called algorithm hacks, right? Post at 3 minutes past 8 on a Tuesday while standing on one leg or whispering sweet nothings at your laptop. But still nothing works. So here's the truth. The algorithm isn't broken. It's just bored of your content. Bit brutal, I know, but it's honest. So today we're cutting through the noise and get to what LinkedIn actually rewards. Not what some guy on YouTube said back in 2020 while wearing sunglasses indoors and living it up in life because there was nothing else to do.
It does look cool, though. Carry on.
Sometimes. Welcome to Smash My Algorithm, the show where we will stop taking the misery out of LinkedIn and give you something useful for once. He's Gareth Wax and I'm Kirsty Hall, and between us, we're putting an end to the nonsense advice you've probably wasted many hours trying. Forget the hashtags, the pods, and the engagement tricks. We're keeping this simple, practical, and slightly entertaining, because if we're bored about it, then you're definitely bored listening. So here's the big reveal. You've tried everything. Links, no links, long posts, short posts, pictures of your cat in a tie. Yet nothing's sticking. Thought you'd like that, knowing that you go on about your cat videos, Gareth. And that's because the algorithm only cares about one thing: keeping people on LinkedIn. That's it. So your job is to create content that makes people pause, comment, or click. Do that and suddenly LinkedIn loves you. Don't do it well and everyone's just shouting into the void. So Gareth, you've got a few truth bombs for us, haven't you?
Yeah, I got, before I get into them, I just got to re-emphasize what Kirsty's saying. She's bang on it, as usual. You can get schooled by Kirsty every day of the week. It's not about the fact that what you're saying is repetitive or even that you're not giving great information. You could well be giving great information, but if every other person on there is giving similar information to you, albeit rehashed in a different way, and with maybe more fancy emojis, it doesn't matter. It's bored. You've got to say things.
Can use emojis? Have you given instruction to use emojis?
Yeah. I don't like emojis very much, but if you want to use emojis, you go for it, as long as you only use them with content that actually moves the needle. And what I mean by that is stuff that people care about. You should be able to look at any piece of work that you put out there and go, if I wasn't me and I'm reading this for the first time, would I really care? Would I give a stuff? Do I give a monkeys a half-witted toss about whether this thing is there or not? Possibly not. So truth bomb number one. The algorithm, which isn't the thing, it's a whole series of software programs and gates and we package it all together and call it the algorithm. It favors content that creates conversation. So stuff that tells you about your weekend and how marvelous it was will get lots of people commenting, but it won't lead anywhere in particular. And it certainly won't encourage you to have a conversation to do with why you can help them or why they might be able to help you or what it is between you that will create further interaction. So
now I'm going to disagree with you there.
Oh,
because I actually put a post out about the Rugby World Finals that was last weekend before, whatever it was.
All right.
Big rugby fan, of course I did. And that actually sparked a conversation. Initially, we were talking about the rugby, but we then went on to have a business conversation, and we then had a further one-to-one that turned into business. I wouldn't have had that if I didn't post the initial
Okay. Post. I've got a golden rule that I follow. There's only one way to communicate with vast tracts of people in one fell swoop. Talk about politics, which is probably a no-no, religion, a double no-no, or football or sport. And sport really works because it's kind of like the universal opener. If you've got know that some great thing has happened that fills people with pride and a Rugby World Cup is being one of them, you can immediately get people on side. It's the one thing that we're still allowed to be patriotic about. You can be patriotic about your team doing well. Not so much if your local team, although people still josh about that sort of thing. But if it's the country team and you say, we did so well, everybody loves to join in with that. If you could then use it as a lever to create further conversation, that's the important point. So let's double down on this first truth bomb. Remember, it favors content that creates conversation. We already said that. Not just likes, comments, replies, stuff that shows that people actually have a pulse. So sparks the post conversation, go further, full stop. There's no other thing to say about that. So end every post with a comment that provokes still further reaction. And I always recommend that you give them a trial closed question. Has this happened to you? And also then follow that with an open question, which gets them to actually start the conversation. Has that happened to you? Can you tell me what you did and how it changed things for you, and maybe how you felt when it was happening? That's always a good one. How it felt. People love talking about their feelings. So that's the first one. The second thing is all about something called dwell time. Now, dwell time is actually used to be referred to as the amount of time that people stay on your website before they moved elsewhere or did the next thing. That's the dwell time. It applies to LinkedIn just as well. If you can think that your page is like a mini website, so the amount of time they spend on your page, on your profile, means they're likely to be reading. And if they're reading stuff that makes them want to react or comment, or the amount of time they spend on your post means they're probably reading. And what most people do is read the first couple of paragraphs and then scoot down and see what everybody else is saying. Now, if you can get them to make a comment, or better still, because what's better than making a comment is if they react to somebody else's comment. So you end up having sub-conversations building in there. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Because not only does it help the algorithm, because it makes it, I'm giving it a human characteristic here, makes it believe that what you said has created interest and therefore more people ought to see it, therefore opens the aperture so more people get to see it in the first place, which is better reach. The longer they read, the more reach they get. Because if you can get them to stop scrolling, the algorithm smiles, if you like. So I use open
One of the best posts I done was about a scone or scone, what do you call it? But then the next part of it was you put the cream first or the jam first.
Well, this is because anything that's an age-old question, anything, and if you're not from Britain, I apologise to you, but there are two parts of the country, Dorset and Cornwall, and each one of them puts the cream. We have a thing called a scone, which is a bit like a cookie, if you like. Well, it's a crumbly cookie, if you like. Less squidgy in the center and more crumbly, but with a definite flavor. We had them with either currants or sultanas or without. I prefer mine with. Heather, my wife, prefers them without.
The cheese
Stop now.
With a cream cheese and a chutney.
You're perverting the conversation onto food. One of my favorite topics. Kirsten and I could talk about food for hours. Anyway, let's get back to this.
Back to LinkedIn.
But the point is, there's always been a conversation, or rather a friendly rivalry between these two counties in the UK. Think of them as states. They're between these two states, if you will, in the UK, about which order you place cream and jam on. I never wanted to tell anyone, but if you turn the whole thing upside down, it doesn't really matter anyway. So moving on. But the point is, if you post up something about a friendly rivalry, if you know there is, you know that a quantile of the population that read it will have an immediate response. The best way of turning that into something that might create a positive reaction that could be relevant to business is if you add a question on the end, something like, which way do you do it? And does that apply to the way in which you work? Do you often do things a different way to other people do it? Tell me in the comments.
No,
you see what I did there? Yes, because what I did was I created what I call a parallel. You created a silly thing. So you might, for instance, you could find a cat video where the cat jumps off something without looking where it's going to land, but still lands on its feet. And you could do something like, wow, this cat, we thought it was going to use up one of its 9 lives, but look at that, landed on its feet. Do you find that when you take a chance in business, you always land on your feet, or do you sometimes reach out for help? Do you see what I did there? I
love the fact the cat videos are back.
Right, why not? All right, so truth bomb number 3. It's not hashtags, it's people that trigger the algorithm. So what do I mean by that? All right, it sounds like I'm just giving you a basic truism. Yes, of course, we know that the internet is full of humans, but we also know it's full of other things as well, such as AI and so on. We don't want AI to respond, or we do, but we don't, because we want real interaction. AI is great. It's great at helping you make what you're trying to say syntactically correct and looking a certain way. You want to make it more serious, you can make it more serious. You want to make it more elegant, you can make it more elegant. But if you don't start off with your stuff at the kernel of it, and then if you get other people reacting to it using AI, there's no real conversation there at all. So what you want is humans to respond. So you must make sure that the more humans respond, the more LinkedIn boosts it, again creating more reach. So the most important, I would like to everybody watching this, take this as your new motto. I will comment on other people's work first, before and after you post, and comment on your own last. If you comment on your own work within 10 minutes of having posted it, it will downgrade the effectiveness of your post. You should always comment on other people's stuff and other people's posts. I mean, you could even be quite sneaky and note the people who are viewing your content, go and view theirs, put a comment on the recent stuff they've done, which would possibly encourage them to go back and make a comment on yours, especially if it's on a similar subject.
Quick question, because I mentioned links when I introduced this show, and you've mentioned links as well. Somebody told me links in a post is banned and it damages the algorithms, and you put the link in the comments. True, not true? Where do links go?
Yes, it does. Yes, well, no, it's an interesting one. It used to be, yes, it used to almost negate your efforts. It doesn't now. It does knock it right back if you do it within the first 10 minutes. So you can go back and edit it 10 minutes later and put the link in. It still knocks it back by, I think, 3 or 4%, but it's still worth having it there. The problem with putting it in the comments only occurs when people reshare it, because the comments won't be reshared. And so you might have lost that very thing that's so important to be there. Yeah. You remember, you could also put in the imagery a QR code. So it might be a really cool thing to do, to have a statement with a QR code and saying, scan here if you want to know more.
The issue with that, if I was viewing it on my mobile phone, I can't use my mobile phone to scan my mobile phone. I only have one phone.
Quite right. Which is why you do need it in both places. But if you go to work, for instance, after you've been doom scrolling on your LinkedIn, you've been swiping left and right like crazy. When you get to work, you'll probably move to using LinkedIn on the desktop, at which point, if you come across that post, having the mobile right next to you, you'll go and scan it. And it's been shown to really help with engagement on landscape type content. So very little point in putting QR codes on vertical content, great deal of point putting QR codes on horizontal or landscape content. So let me summarize a little bit. What matters most? comments do, reshares do, and you're only going to get the reshares if people are actually interacting with it. Keep people on the post. Engage like a human would, not a marketeer, and certainly not AI. Try to do it from the point of view of, I've created a bit of interest, let's double down on it. You don't need to beat the algorithm. You need to work with it. You need to show up with something worth reacting to. Remember what I said earlier? Why should I care? That's what you're going to be asking yourself when you write that content. Over to you, Kirsty.
So, as always, we've got a challenge for you listeners out there today. And that challenge for this week is, on your next LinkedIn post, add a question to the end. And like Gareth says, try and make it an open question so people can actually write their comments.
You can do a closed question first and then an open question to follow. Use the closed question as almost like a trial one to get people into it.
That's a good point, actually, yeah. So closed question, then an open question. Then, but before you publish it, make sure you comment on other people's posts. Then after you've published it, go and comment on at least 5 other posts, because that's the little bit that LinkedIn wants. Think of it as like, I don't know, going and putting your lipstick on before your foundation. You don't. You put your foundation on, then your lipstick, for you ladies out there.
Also, can you make sure that you don't write nice post or I'm so glad to see this? Make reference to something that was said in the post in such a way that it looks like you're really interested. And for God's sake, don't write. I really love the way you talk about that. Would you like to buy my IQ Koki 2000? Try and avoid turning it into a pitch grab.
But also, you should be using 5 to 6 words in a comment for it to actually mean anything. So just think about that when you're writing your comments. So next week, it's going to be a good one because we're calling it the show-stopping show. Ugh. I'll say that again, shall I? The scroll-stopping show. We're breaking it down on how to write those posts that stop the thumbs mid-swipe and, yes, open wallets.
Okay, so I've actually got a post that I created. It was a couple of years ago, but it really still, the techniques I use still work. And we're going to use that as an example and work through it. It was about workplace bullying, but I managed to get 65 comments within 3 hours. And the reason why I got so many comments on it, and this without any kind of boosting, and most importantly, I issued that out at 1 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, which is one of the most unpopular times on LinkedIn. And I did that as a test.
At that time of day?
That's the point. The thing was, I used a certain graphic, I put it out there in a certain way, and I wrote it in a method that even though it was quite long, it got people to read to the end. And we're going to go through all those techniques next week.
We are indeed. So that's Tuesday, 11 a.m. See you there.
See you there on
All Sorts of Facts.
All Sorts of Facts. Till then.